All right, so let's take a look. Let's take a look at another problem. All right, so we've got the 36.14 divided by 0.2. All right, so the dividend, we've got 36.104, and we're going to divide by the 0.2. The 0.2. And again, that's not a whole number. If it were a whole number, if this were a whole number, my first step would be to bring that decimal point straight up. If this were a whole number, there would be no need to move any decimal point. If this were a whole number, I'd move the decimal point straight up. But because that is not a whole number, I've got to move the decimal place over 1. So I'm going to move this decimal place over 1, and I'll bring the decimal point straight up. Straight up. All right. So now, how many times does 2 go into 3? Goes in 1 time. 1 times 2 is 2. All right, 1 times 2 is 2. And then after I divided and then I multiplied, after division, multiply, and multiplication, then I'm going to subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. After we subtract, we just bring down. Bring down this next number of 6. And then we start the process all over again. How many times does 2 go into 16? 2 goes into 16 8 times. So I'm putting the 8 over the next number. I'm not just putting the 8 anywhere. I'm putting the 8 over the next number, which is 6. So after we divide, then we multiply again. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 2 is 16. After we multiply, we subtract again. 16 minus 16 is 0. So I can put 0 there, or I don't have to put anything there at all. All right, so I subtract, and what's after subtract? We had multiply, divide, subtract, and then bring down. All right, so then we bring down the 1. All right, to bring down the 1. Again, we're only bringing down one number. I don't continue to bring down numbers until I can divide 2 into that. I don't do that. I subtracted, I brought down the 1, and that's the only number that I'm going to bring down. So after bringing down, I divide all over again. How many times does 2 go into 1? 0 times. 2 goes into 1 0 times. After division, we got to multiply. 0 times 1 is 2. Or excuse me, 0 times 2 is 0. And after multiplication, we ask you to subtract again. You subtract, you get 1. You bring down a number, you bring down to 0, and then after you bring down, we ask you to divide again. 2 goes into 10 5 times. We're going to stop right there. 180.5. 180.5. Final answer. Final answer. And you haven't called in. I want you to call in right now if you have any question on anything that we've done. Next week, just to give you a little preview of what we're going to do, we're going to talk about significant digits. Now, I know you're going to call in. We're going to talk about significant digits. Mr. Hendricks, I've always wanted to know what does a teacher mean by, hey, make sure your answer is correct using the correct number of significant digits. We're going to talk about that. If you don't call me next week, shame on you. You don't call me next week. We have time for one last problem. All right. One last problem. All right, let's take a look. Again, we're dividing 2 numbers. Again, don't think the first number is always the dividend. The first number here is always the dividend. Common mistake here is someone would say maybe 0.06, and someone would say here they might say 0.06, and then they divide 0.0047. That is wrong. That is wrong. The first number is your divisor. So let's do it properly over here. We have 0.0047, and that is being divided by 0.06. Again, we're doing the same thing over and over again. This is not a whole number. If it were a whole number, I'd bring the decimal point straight up. All right, so move the decimal over 2. Move the decimal over 2. Now you bring the decimal straight up. How many times does 6 go into 0? It doesn't. I'm rushing because I only have 45 seconds left. How many times does 6 go into this 0? It doesn't. How many times does 6 go into 4? It doesn't, so you put a 0 there. How many times does 6 go into 47? Goes in 7 times. Goes in 7 times. Now you multiply 7 times 6 is 42. You subtract and you get 5. Let's stop right there. 0.07. Final answer. That's all we have time for. We want to encourage you not to give up, not to quit. We want to encourage you that you can dominate math.